we love Blake, but the primary reason Blake is here is to unpack the remake of Tony Hawk 1 and 2, which Jeff Keighley was gracious enough to gift the internet with this week.
Tony Hawk's Underground, the first one, is my all-time favorite game of ever. Like, year over year, it's somehow one of my most played games. Like, in 2018, I probably played it more than any other game I played that year. I don't know what it is. There's, like, obviously some amount of rose tint and nostalgia to it because I really loved those games growing up, especially Underground. But they also are just... they hold up super well. Like, they're super great arcadey games to play, even 15 years on.
Yeah.
And I think, like, their place in pop culture is super interesting, and that kind of maybe is why I like them so much, is their influence on a lot of the things I like outside of video games, like my taste in music or even TV or the skateboarding industry.
Right.
So it's just like a series I have a lot of love for based on kind of its impact on pop culture and, of course, just playing those games.
And it's also very fun. Yeah, but I like having you on because you're a little bit younger than most of us. Or you're a young lad, too. But in my mind, I guess an old man's perspective, it's like, well, Tony Hawk, the early ones are absolutely amazing. And then your mind's like,
Sure.
Oh, no, Thug's the way to go. Absolutely. So I love having this full range to talk about. So how did you feel about the big reveal of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2 being remade? And when's it coming out? The end of this year, September, right?
Yeah, I think it's in a few months. I think it's cool. Like, it makes sense if you maybe ignore the fact that Robomoto already put out those games in the Tony Hawk HD collection.
Okay, that is the weird thing. It feels like it wasn't that long ago, but you look and it's like, oh, it was 2012. They announced Tony Hawk's Pro Skater HD, which was kind of like, hey, everybody, we're remaking this. And the world got very excited, and then we played it and said, not so much. And then we played Tony Hawk Pro Skater 5 and said, absolutely not. And then now... people forget, and it's just like this cycle.
You skipping the mobile game?
I'm sorry, there's the mobile game, but the world just kind of forgets, and it fades with time. And now they can have a big marketing splash out there, being like, "Hey, Tony Hawk's back, everybody! Remember the warehouse?" And it's like, "Hell yeah, I do!" And the world is excited again. It's a beautiful cycle of the internet.
I mean, I think like it makes sense on a few different levels. Like, there's the obvious nostalgia for the Tony Hawk series as people get older. Like, they want to revisit some of those games, but especially 1 and 2 compared to, 4 or the Underground series, those games are harder to revisit. They do not play as well as you remember. I had to play 1 again last year for an article, and it's rough.
Really? Because that was one of my favorite games. More than any other Tony Hawk, I played the hell out of 1. And in my mind, it's perfect. I don't want to go back to it almost.
I think I'm a fairly competent Tony Hawk player at this point, and I struggle with 1, like with basic moves. So I think that's a big reason why they're coming back, but also, like, weirdly, just skateboarding games are coming back. Like, in the past few years, there have been a bunch of announcements. There have been a few solid skateboarding games that came out. Sorry.
Yeah.
Special shout out to Snowman, who put out Skate City on iPhones. Like, that team's awesome, and that game is awesome. So it feels like a really good time, even if it's like a remake of the original game. I don't know.
Yeah, it was weird. Like, I don't know if it was because there were rumors bubbling about Tony Hawk, but before this announcement even happened over the weekend, I finally downloaded Skater XL on Steam, which is in early access. It's going to be released, I believe, in early July. And it is very much in that skate lineage. Also, Sessions? What is it, Blake?
Session, I believe.
Session. Also very much in that skate vibe, a little more realistic. And Skater XL, as it stands now, I had a good time with it, but it's pretty bare bones, so I'm curious what it actually looks like when it releases. Hopefully there's a killer soundtrack in there or something, because it's kind of just doing technical kickflips in a parking lot at this point, which is still surprisingly fun.
Yeah, I never got super into the, like, techie side of skateboarding games. Like, I was always super into... like the arcadey games more than like I think I've maybe played Skate 2 for like a few minutes and bounced off it really quick.
Oh, really?
But like I'm also stoked that there is still an audience for that kind of game, even if those aren't the specific skateboarding games that resonate with me a lot.
Yeah. Kyle, I assume you're a big Tony Hawk fan because you're a smart guy.
Yeah. I love Tony Hawk. I think my starting line was actually 3. And then I kind of went back and played 1 and 2 and 4 a ton. And I like Thug a lot. Like, I feel like Thug doesn't get the respect it deserves, but there's actually like the weird thing about Thug and Thug 2 is like weirdly compelling story. Like, I wanted to see it to the end.
What?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah. Like they have a good villain, and like I like the reason I beat that game is because like I want to see what happens.
Who is it? Like a cop that like
It's
threatens
just
you for
like your
graffiti?
idiot neighbor, right? Who's just like a total jerk.
Eric Sparrow is his name, which is like it's a terrible name too. But now I'm just now realizing that his name is like almost like Tony Hawk, where it's name and bird.
Yep.
Eric Sparrow. I never realized that.
Boring
until just
name
now.
plus bird.
The layers.
The first thing I did after the announcement was, which is the same thing a lot of people did, is like, oh, I own Tony Hawk's Pro Skater HD for Xbox Live Arcade. Is it backward? Let me go check if it's backwards compatible. I'll download it, and it's not.
Yep.
Like you have to break out a 360 to play that game or a PS3.
Also, they delisted it in 2017 because I'm like, I'm excited to check this thing out. I want to go back and look at that.
I didn't know
have it
that.
anywhere. Yeah. So if anybody has it, for the cohorts or anybody else, I would love to find a way to stream that because I think it is this bizarre relic in the story of Tony Hawk. But you mentioned Tony Hawk 3, Kyle. The weird thing is, so Vicarious Visions is making this remake, and they did an amazing job in 2018 with the Crash Bandicoot remake, and so people have a lot of faith in them overall. They also, going back, because they've been around forever, they also were the ones that like ported Tony Hawk 3 and 4 to the original PlayStation and like Game Boy Advance. Like they have a history with the series. Who knows if there's any developers from back in the day that are still working on it now, but it's a good choice for the team. Did anybody check out the gameplay footage on Jack Black's YouTube channel?
No,
I did. Yeah,
did not.
It's a weird
watch the whole thing.
It's fun too because like apparently it was filmed a while ago because they're all hanging out and high-fiving each other and stuff. But they like go to a skate park and then like almost all the skaters just show up and are skating there. So it's like this amazing thing of like, oh, Kareem Campbell, there's a name I haven't heard in a long time. Like Chad Muska is a big old dork for Jack Black. Okay, and Rodney Mullen's exactly as cool as you expect him to be. Talking about MIT
Rodney
and
Mullen's
stuff.
got like a degree. They like an honorary doctorate from some college or something, and he's like, I don't know why they gave that to me.
Yeah,
it actually it prompted me, which I'm guessing a lot of people did this too. It prompted me to pull up his Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 video that you unlock when you play as Rodney Mullen.
It's the best.
It's the best.
It's unbelievable. Yeah, I tried showing my girlfriend that video recently. She's like, look at this. And she's like, that's cool. Looks like a skateboarder. I'm like, looks like a skateboarder. Like, this is the second coming of
This man has an honorary doctorate.
Yeah, are you kidding me? And he's doing it to AFI song. It's amazing. But the crazy thing about seeing that gameplay then, not only that it was revealed on Jack Black's channel, but just seeing how fast it looked. Like, you forget that, oh yeah, the warehouse is pretty small and you're really booking it around there like in the first Tony Hawk. And then also the weird thing is they don't animate you getting up. It's just like, did you notice this, Kyle? Like if you bail, is that what skaters say? Then it's just like this weird glitch and then the character is like standing up again. Like it has more of like a abstract presentation for that aspect than I was expecting.
I mean, that's like an early version. I mean, that's like a build from before the pandemic even, right? That they were playing. So, but I think I like that just to get you back in the action really quickly. I like it conceptually, Yeah,
you're not going to complain about the lack of realism, but I'm sorry, Jeff and Suriel, are you guys Tony Hawk fans? Is it just assumed that every smart gamer is a Tony Hawk fan?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I started with the first time I played it was like the demo that they used to have in stores, which was just ingenious because they let you play for like a minute, and after that you're like, oh, I have to get this now. I need to play longer than a minute at a time.
Yeah, exactly.
But I started with the original and played, I probably ended up falling off around Thug at that point because there were a lot of Tony Hawk games back in the day. But
Suriel, do you have a history with Tony Hawk?
It was a game that I think was I would play it at my friends' houses all the time. They'd have like different versions of that game. But I think the one I played most was actually like Thug 2. And then later on, I played a lot of the DS version of American Wasteland, which they called American Skateland. But I like that one because it was portable. And when you live in a house with 4 siblings, you need all the screens you can get. So I played that one quite a lot. It was okay, but it had like the Tony Hawk act. It wasn't like the 2D ones. It was like a full 3D game, and it looked like garbage, but it played like the 3D ones, which is what I wanted. So those are the two that I played most, are Thug 2 and American Skateland.
Yeah, that's bizarre. So with the remake, they're kind of bending the remake thing. It's like 1 and 2, but they're still going to put the revert in there, which I think was 3 that added that. Is that what they said? And then also like the manual from 2 will be in 1. So the way they pitch it is like the tricks you remember doing a lot, we're going to kind of re-engineer them into the basics, even for the Tony Hawk 1 stuff, which is cool to see. But Blake, is there anything you want from this remake in general?
I mean, the thing I would have wanted is the updated controls or mechanics like the revert and manual for it to be kind of like the complete package in terms of tricks. Outside of that, like I don't think I need some like Final Fantasy VII style remake of the Thug story or
Wouldn't it be
anything.
cool, though?
But it would.
You never leave the warehouse.
Yeah. No, but
They're trying to stop Tony Hawk from.
it would be rad though, and I assume this is the like the monetization scheme or whatever is to make DLC packs of like, here's Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3, all the levels, here's 4, here's Underground 2, and then don't worry about Project 8 onward. But that's like what I would want.
But if this thing sells well, and I do believe it'll sell well no matter what, then they could make Tony Hawk 3 and 4 remake, and I feel like it's right there. So I don't know how much they'd really want to pack into this thing if they really don't need to, because people assumed they were going to do that for the Crash remake, and then with Crash Team Racing, like, oh, I bet they're going to pack it in, and then they ended up selling it on its own for $40, and I believe it sold like gangbusters, you know. So I think Activision can really milk the hell out of this thing more than we would like.
I will say real quick, the one thing I'm interested in is the licensing around Tony Hawk's name for this.
Yeah.
Which I don't know if anyone's talked about it, like what Activision has the rights to anymore, but the agreed upon story about why 5 was such a disaster is it was rushed out because Activision was losing the rights to Tony Hawk's name.
Right.
So I don't know if they have that again or if they just have the rights to Tony Hawk Pro Skater and they are able to republish that, but I'm super interested in what that could mean for possible future Tony Hawk games and whether or not there will be.
Yeah. Okay, so you have an interesting history with Tony Hawk, not the man, but the games, but then also with Neversoft, the original developer. So you do a lot of freelance stuff. You've written a bunch of amazing articles for Polygon in particular. And so walk me through this. You went to Montana and hung out with the founder of Neversoft?
One of the founders. There are 3 founders of Neversoft. It's Joel Jewett, Mick West, and Chris Ward. And Joel Jewett he was basically like the figurehead of Neversoft and their entire like reputation and company culture. He's kind of just like rock party dude. Like that's his whole thing. And after Neversoft was folded into Infinity Ward, he retired from the game industry and didn't move out to Montana per se because he is from Montana and still had a home there that he would bounce to and from while he was living in California working at Neversoft. But I went out and visited him and he's like a madman. Cool. He's an amazing dude. Like he's a super sweet dude and his family is like very inviting and very warm, but he's also just like, I don't know, Bear Grylls or something out there in the wildlands. Like within 10 minutes of meeting the dude, he's throwing me on speedboats, and at some point I'm on like a 4-wheeler in the mountains during a hailstorm and riding horses around these dangerous trails. Like he's crazy.
Okay, stop. Okay, this is the amazing thing.
Okay.
Very few people would think of writing this story and then actually be like, you know what, I'm going to get on a plane and actually fly to Montana to talk about the history of Neversoft and the history of Tony Hawk, but primarily for that kind of like experiential writing. Can you just talk about that process and why you think that's important to like go on a speedboat with a Neversoft developer?
It's a few things. I think I do need to say up front that this article actually wasn't my idea, weirdly enough. It was my longtime friend and like editor, Matt Leone at Polygon, who is kind of the brainchild of this one. He was like, I think probably as a joke was like, what if I sent you to Montana to hang out with Joel? And I was like, well, you said it, now I have to do it.
Yeah.
But like, I'm willing to do it because I think, and this isn't exclusive to Joel Jewett, like I've done a lot of these stories where I find video games in weird places or, you know, get myself into the homes of game developers to see what their life outside of work is like, because I think it's important to humanize people like this. Like Joel Jewett is probably pretty well known in our circle, but no one knows the person behind this like beloved studio and beloved franchises. Not that he made the games by himself. He had a lot of employees, but like it's important, I think, to put a face to company names, like talking to Joel Jewett or talking to anyone from Neversoft. I've interviewed Mick West and a bunch of the others before. So just like actually going there and showing like this is a human that helped make these things we love is super, super important.
Yeah, like
and
for Christ's sake, you went to Colombia to talk to the founder of Rockstar San Diego, the Red Dead team and stuff, but he has since left. But seemed like he was just living a life of luxury in Colombia and has an amazing house and like runs a restaurant. It seems so wild.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, Diego was a completely different thing than Joel. Joel, you know, is like a high octane dude, but Diego is more maybe what you would expect from a retired game developer where he just kicks his feet up and enjoys his beers and like hangs out. But yeah, I don't know. I think those stories are important. I've been criticized before for focusing on like CEOs of companies, which I guess is maybe a fair criticism. But I also think it's important just to put a name behind any video game. And Joel Jewett is a fascinating person. And I think his story post Neversoft was worth telling. So
yeah.
I did it.
What did you learn about, you know, post Neversoft is great. What did you learn about peak Neversoft? First of all, did you figure out whose idea was that logo? That horrific logo? Yeah,
I asked about that. I'm trying to remember. I think it was Chris Ward, one of the co-founders, that made it, and probably the way Joel explained it was badass. Like, and that was it.
Also, the name is the name just a dick joke?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. The story I'm told is that one of Joel's friends came up with it in his garage while they were drinking beers. So.
Checks out.
There you go.
And if I'm getting my lore correct on their business cards back in the day, it was always hard, never soft. So yeah, it's either a dick joke or a joke about like, you know, partying hard or whatever.
Right.
Different time in the industry.
To be fair, though, MinnMax was also a dick joke.
Yeah, people aren't picking up on that. There's a lot of genitalia jokes strewn throughout all of MinnMax's content, and we really need people to pick up on it.
Sure. Keep saying two N's and no one gets it.
No one gets it. It's crazy. When I went to Infinity Ward, like the last time I was there for the Modern Warfare remake with Game Informer, it was that confusing thing where we went for a tour of the studio, and it's like, oh yeah, this hallway is kind of the remnants of Neversoft, and within Infinity Ward, the Call of Duty developer, they just have like this hallway where it's all these skateboards signed by all the skaters and stuff. It's like this weird museum ode to the old days of Neversoft. It's weird to connect those studios now.
Yeah, I mean, I don't presume to speak for anyone that worked at Neversoft or works at Infinity Ward now, but I have heard people talk in the past about how like that zombies crew at Infinity Ward, which I don't know if they still have a zombies crew at this point.
The lead guy left, yeah.
Yeah, at some point it was made up of a lot of Neversoft people, and it was described to me as like, oh, that's like the mini Neversoft still around there floating as these dudes making these wacky zombie modes for Infinity Ward's Call of Duties.
Yeah, which is honestly, I mean, who knows with Jason Blundell leaving, how much is going to stay intact, but that is one of the most eye-opening experiences I've honestly had in the video game industry of like, yeah, Call of Duty zombies, I get it, it's zombies, some people like it, some people don't, whatever. And then talking to that team. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm thinking about Treyarch, actually. Jason Blundell left there. That's confusing. But at Treyarch then, just taking that deep dive into like, here's some of the zombies lore, here's some of the insane things we've been doing. It is like this subculture within the Call of Duty community that's just overflowing and passionate and creative, and it's just Easter eggs, and it's all just this elaborate puzzle. It's amazing. But, okay, back on track, Tony Hawk. New features, you guys, this time around with this remake. They're adding like the Create a Park stuff, which is cool. Online multiplayer with like still all the old modes. You can still play Pagan Horse, all that fun stuff. And the confusing wording is they say we'll have some of the songs from the original games. They're not getting everything, but they confirmed like Papa Roach, Goldfinger, Primus, Lagwagon, Naughty by Nature, Bad Religion, Rage Against the Machine, Dead Kennedys, Millencolin, which is a band I haven't thought about for a long time, Power Man 5000. So they have some of the big ones. They'll have Superman in there. They'll have Jerry Was a Race Car Driver, which I've heard 3,000 times in my life, and I'm not sure why. So, hey, good times.
They need more Del the Funky Homo Sapien, and that's my only request.
Yeah?
Other
He
than
was
that,
in,
Deltron
that was in
3030.
3, right? He was
Yeah.
predominantly in 3.
Well, look,
think he was in
they
Thug
added
as well.
features from the newer ones into the older ones. Just make that one of those.
There we go.
I mean, why is music licensing so complicated? I mean, they have Call of Duty money. Can't they just throw money at these artists, or
I
is
have
it
no
just not worth
idea.
it to them?
I think
have no
contracts are
idea.
just like messed up in that they just don't account for this kind of stuff. So
I guess.
I don't think it's impossible, but just like I think it's just headache inducing more than like
Yeah.
no, it's more about it being not worth it than like, oh, this is impossible.
Yeah.
Yeah, like why would you not want to be in that game? Whether you're the person who owns the music or you're the band, like it just seems like a no-brainer. It's
I
weird.
think the people that own the music, they don't care. It's some lawyer, it's not, there's no passion involved or even knowledge of what this thing is.
But it's money.
Well,
You
there's
get
like
money.
there's weird things where there you can get the rights to a composition of a song versus the master of it, and so that's like two different rights you'd have to buy to get an actual track in it. But also, a lot of those bands probably have shifted labels at some point, and it's like, where does the rights to this song or where does this album, like, where does that exist? Is it on X label or Y label? And might be just hard to. It's kind of like the No One Lives Forever story that came out a while back. It's like, who actually owns the rights to whatever Papa Roach song they're trying to get in there,
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Remember when games used to just let you add your own music to them?
No, that's a legend. No one
the
recalls.
Xbox thing. I don't know why they don't do that anymore.
I know.
The PlayStation has the Spotify app you can play.
Yeah.
Over
Was it dangerous
your-
driving? Let
Yeah.
you
I think
import
it's-
all your Spotify playlists.
It's also a universal feature. Like you can just play
Yeah.
Spotify over any game at
Yeah.
this point.
Just
there-
Or you can just
Yeah,
put
there
headphones
we go.
on and listen to other stuff while you're playing the game.
That checks out. Works out for us.
I only
No
listened to
licensing.
Millen. When I played Red Dead, I only listened to Millen, Colin.
That's really smart, man. That's a really smart.
It
take.
made a lot of those moments maybe not resonate as much as Rockstar thought they were going to, but it worked out for me.
I was kind of, I'm excited for the remake, but there's a part of me where it's like, oh, I was hoping Vicarious Visions was making a new Crash game or doing something bigger and more bold on the Activision side than this. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's been a while since the Crash game came out. I can't imagine the full team was dedicated to this, and they're also probably still helping with support with other things, Call of Duty here and there. But yeah, I hope they're still making an original Crash game, and this isn't fully consuming the studio. As excited as I am for this, but also it was fun to see this as the big Jeff Keighley reveal this week. When the week started, we were debating about what we're going to do for the MinnMax show. We didn't know if they're going to be the news, and it turns out Jeff Keighley comes swinging in on a vine and saves the day with his Summer Game Fest, the big kickoff here. Even though Tony Hawk kind of spoiled it.
I was about to say, what's weird about that is like Tony Hawk texted everybody that the game was coming.
Okay, stop.
And then
I don't. What does that mean? I was so confused why people were saying that.
A few months ago, you could sign up. He posted this video. He's like, "Hey, here's my phone number." All of it, you're basically getting on an email newsletter,
Yeah.
but it's just texted to you. Is all it is ultimately.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
that happened, and then also like 10 minutes before the stream started, the trailer was tweeted out by the Tony Hawk Twitter account. Like, it's
Keighley
just
must
odd.
be
Like, it's still
livid.
exciting, but it's like I'm still confused about what Summer Game Fest is exactly.
It's.
I think
know.
it had also been leaked like 10 times before this. Like Jason Dill, who's a pro skater, he leaked it like a week ago on the 9 Club podcast, and I think it was just an open secret at this point. Maybe Tony was like, I don't care anymore about NDAs.
Yeah, can you imagine? Oh, poor Jeff Keighley. When it all comes down to exclusives, it's so nice with MinnMax to be out of that exclusive game by and large,
Sure.
But imagine being Keighley just like, okay, I need to be sure to coach Tony Hawk through this, that he can't tweet about this. Yeah, you're right. I'm sure Tony Hawk's just like, whatever. I'll just tweet about it when I want to. Fans are bugging me every single day about it. Like, big whoop, Jeff Keighley. You want your Summer Game Fest to go well. Like, who cares? Well, let's just blast it out.
The ones that recognize Tony Hawk are bothering him.
Yeah. What's that weird trend?
Oh,
Do you want to explain that, Kyle?
Tony Hawk tweets a lot about how people walk up to him and are like, "Hey, has anyone ever told you look a lot like Tony Hawk?" And that's like his life, I guess. No one believes he's actually Tony Hawk.
That's so funny. I had to dig out the old photo, but is at E3. It must have been when they were unveiling Tony Hawk 5 or something like that. And there's this weird moment. I don't know if any of you were in the booth, but we're in like the Game Informer booth, which is like behind the scenes, like little where publishers and stuff meet. And so we're all working in the booth. And then this guy that knows some people at Game Informer, because everybody knows everybody, opens the door and he's like, "Hey, sorry to bug you guys. Tony Hawk's with me and he needs some place just to like hang out and charge his phone in between interviews. He doesn't want people bugging him. So can you just like hang out in your little booth? I'm like, yeah, sure, whatever, no problem, man. So then
What more innocuous place to hang out in E3 than a press booth?
I know, and there were only like a couple of us in there. Jeff, were you in there?
Mm-mm.
Kyle, were you?
I think I saw him briefly. Like I remember stepping in between meetings, and I was like, "Oh, Tony Hawk. Okay, I gotta go see Nintendo stuff."
Yeah, so I remember like it was Jeff Cork and I sitting there, and it's like, "Yeah, no problem." So then Tony just sat there and checked his phone and looked bored, and you know, was pleasant enough and stuff.
At some point, he was assigned a preview and wrote it up. One fine
really
line in
stunning.
Game Informer from Tony Hawk.
Yeah, he reviewed Skate 3 for us, which I thought was really generous of him. But my favorite memory of that then is Jim Riley, former news editor at Game Informer. He popped his head in just to say hi to us because, you know, he didn't work there anymore. And he pokes his head in and he's like, "Oh, hey, everybody. Hey, Ben Hansen. Hey, Jeff Cork. Hey, Tony Hawk." Like, he just like rolled with it. Did not skip a beat after seeing Tony Hawk just sitting next to us in the press booth. But we got a picture and it was just lovely. And Jeff Cork gave him the hover hand of the century. If you enjoyed this clip from the MinnMax Show podcast, we think you'll like the full show too. You can find it by subscribing to MinnMax's YouTube channel or on your favorite podcast app. Any help spreading the word to keep our whole indie operation here running is appreciated. We're here for and because of the wonderful MinnMax community, so you're welcome to join.